You're on.
Welcome, Place to Be Nation, to the first ever episode of Breaking Balls. In this episode, we will talk about the baseball season that was, the baseball seasons that are, and the baseball seasons that will be. Joining me are Jason Greenhouse and Chris Jordan, but first let me just tell you, I am your host for the evening, Joel Barnhart, professional English teacher, professional sports writer, sports editor for Place to Be Nation, and all-around baseball dork. Let me bring in my co-hosts, Jason and Chris. How are you guys doing tonight?
Yeah, pretty good, Joel.
Hey, good evening, Joel.
Greeny.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we just had a hell of a season and capped off by an amazing World Series. We're going to start off just talking about the season as a whole. Then we'll get to this amazing Astros-Dodgers dogfight that we had. So let's start out talking about our surprise, or just anything from 2017 that stood out to you and made you raise an eyebrow, made you say, oh, I didn't see that coming. Chris, why don't we start with you? What stood out to you?
Well, first of all, I believe 2017 was really the year of the long ball, of course, since they're breaking records and number of home runs hit during a season. It's just, I don't know if that was more of a different approach at the plate by the hitters, or if it's just a gradual decline in the quality of pitching, because by my count, I only really, count like maybe 5 or 6 true aces that are out there. And so, for a guy like me who's more of like a guy who enjoys a good 3-2, 4-3, real good close ball game, and we had a lot of bludgeonings out there during the season. So, but overall, the season was quite interesting, fantastic. I think this season seemed to breeze along a lot quicker than most other seasons, including the postseason, and the postseason was just fantastic. Just the 2017 season in general was just probably one that'll be remembered for a while.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It had the home runs. We had major league record 6,105 home runs this year. Multiple teams topping the 200 mark. Just a tremendous season for anyone who enjoys home runs. New York, of course, led the majors with 241, and even the last place Giants had 128, which is a fairly low total, but it's not so long in the past that might have put you in the top 10 of the league or even led the league. So it really has shifted quite a bit. I do agree with you. I think that the shift in pitching and pitching philosophies has had a lot to do with it. Doesn't seem like there's as many aces, true, honest-to-goodness, shut-down aces anymore. Maybe that's just us getting old and starting to talk about the good old days, but I do think there is actually something to that. It's much more of a bullpen game, so you've got more guys throwing harder, which is going to account for all three things. I mean, you throw harder, it's harder to control the ball, so more walks. You throw harder, it's easier to throw it by people, so more strikeouts. You throw it harder, you're supplying more power, so doubles become home runs. So perhaps there's something to the fact that most starters now are hey, give us 5 innings, give us 6 innings, and we'll turn it over to our studs in the bullpen. Greeny, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to be a little biased, this season was a ton of fun. Just to being the Yankee boy that I am. Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite seasons. Probably in the past 10 years, probably my favorite. The one letdown, in a way, as fun as it was to see the long balls every single night, just balls flying out of the ballpark. But I'd say probably 4 out of the 6 divisions were pretty much determined by the All-Star break. Just a lack of competition in all the divisions. I mean, coming down the stretch, it was pretty much the the AL East and the NL Central, with the Brewers and the Cardinals kind of hanging on with the Cubs. And actually, the Brewers were in first place, and the Cubs were like 2 games below 500 coming into the break.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have any doubts that the Indians wouldn't catch wind and just start knocking teams down in the Central. It took them a little while to get things going. But yeah, what a fun season as far as watching home runs and watching a lot of new players either have great sophomore seasons or great rookie seasons, and a few veterans kind of getting a last chance. I guess like their swan song, you can say. Matt Holliday and a few others come to mind who could be hanging them up soon.
Yeah. It was a great season. It was a lot of fun. I mean, for all of the complaining about, baseball games are too long, which is legit. They do need to shorten them. The problem is, of course, they're doing it the wrong way. Now, we can discuss that on a future show, and we certainly will. The rule changes are window dressing, in my opinion. But, what matters is the game on the field. That's what should always matter. And this year we were treated to just some absolute whopper teams, whopper games, great young players. It was very much reminiscent of the era we kind of call the C-League ball era, the home runs, the era when you could look at a starting pitcher and see an ERA right around 4 and be like, he's not bad. The league ERA, and when I say league, I mean all 30 teams, the composite ERA 4.35, which just a couple years ago, that's your worst team. That's absolutely horrible. So clearly, factors have influenced the game, whether you want to talk about analytics, player development, how players are getting coached in the minors, launch angle. It's not any one thing. It never is that has created such a fun, interesting season where you get a little bit of everything, and then you top it off with maybe the greatest World Series of all time, certainly in the discussion.
Yeah, I want to add, Joel, you talked about launch angle, but this was really the year that those terms launch angle and exit velocity really took off with some focus. You were talking about replays of home run balls, and they're adding the little graphic for launch angle and exit velocity, and that's kind of new to an old stat guy like me. So that definitely was a different perspective on the game, as I call this the grip and rip era, as guys are just up there just trying to hit it over the fence.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. I can't tell you how many times I would, check out MLB, click on an article, and I'd see a highlight that would, it would say StatCast era best, or StatCast era highlight, or, best of the StatCast era launch angle, all these terms. And whether we like it or we don't like it, and there's going to be people on both sides, it is here to stay. The success of teams like Houston, the success of teams that are buying into the number crunching, they're going to win. Now, that's not to say there's not a place for scouting and what you see. That is still a very strong element of the game. Numbers will tell you a lot about a player, but given the impact of a season, the grind that it is, the way that you have to get along with people, both in your clubhouse, with the media, with management, people skills, and the stuff that scouts can see is still valid. But yeah, we've really entered this weird sort of era where everybody's Adam Dunn, but they can play defense. It's very weird. So guys, let's move on to something personal for all of us. Let's talk about our teams. Chris, we'll start with you and the Red Sox. Your team had a great season on some individual levels. Some guys dropped off, and yet you still made the playoffs. You won the East, and so was this season a success because you won the East, or a disappointment because that was kind of it, and there were some, let's just call it turmoil over the monster?
Right. I'll tell you what. It was partly a successful season, just based on the fact that they made the playoffs. And on a personal note, I have no idea. I think they fell ass backwards in the playoffs myself. I mean, I think that was what we know now. I think that was the Yankees' division to win. Clearly, I believe the Yankees were, as much as I hate to admit it, Greeny, but the Yankees were the class of the AL East, in my opinion. They just had a rough stretch on a series of West Coast games there at a critical juncture, and the Red Sox took advantage of it. But in the whole, in the bigger picture, I really think this was a disappointing season because, like you said, they had some players fall off a little bit. Mookie Betts was one. He still had a 20 home run, 100 RBI season, but his average dropped around 270, whereas it was around 300 the season before. Expected a lot more out of Mookie Betts this season. Andrew Benintendi, probably going to be runner-up for Rookie of the Year, but I think they probably expected a little more out of him. Solid season, but again, I think the expectations were a little bit higher in his respect. The whole Red Sox outfield, A defense, A+ defense. I mean, we've seen Mookie Betts shag some flies in that deep right field in Fenway Park that no man probably should have caught. So no problems with the defense. It was a little shaky at third base at the beginning of the season when they had Panda over there. And, we tend to have forgot about Pablo Sandoval since he spent most of the first half of the season on the DL, and then they just basically ate his contract at the All-Star break. But that made room for the Phenom, Rafael Devers. And it was great to see him get the call-up. It was needed. They had a huge gaping hole at third base, and he plugged it up nicely. He needs a little bit of work on his defense, but there's nothing wrong with his stick, and the guy can rake. From a pitching standpoint, disappointing season out of Rick Porcello.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. I feel terrible.
Yeah.
My heart breaks for you.
I can hear the tearing from here, Joe.
It wouldn't be so bad except for just last year how, God damn it, that was Verlander's Cy Young to win.
Yeah, and basically,
we will get to my team in a little bit. So continue.
So I was just going to say that very poor follow-up to a Cy Young season for Porcello. I don't really know. I think it was just he seemed very hittable this year. The sinker wasn't working for him as well as it should have been. He just didn't have a feel for it for most of the season, and that's his bread and butter pitch, is that sinker.
Absolutely.
Had no issues with the bullpen. The bullpen was one of the better aspects of the Sox game, of course headed by Craig Kimbrell, who I feel should be in the running for the Cy Young Award. And he probably will be, but I don't think he's going to win it. But he's definitely. I would probably go out on a limb and say that Kimbrell was probably the team's best pitcher. And that includes Chris Sale. Now, Sale himself was solid pickup. He faded down the stretch. He faded, starting around mid-August. His last, I think, 6 or 7 starts, a little bit shaky for him. And, of course, we saw what happened to him in the postseason against the Astros. And I kind of expected that because he just kind of has a history of fading late in the second half. In his White Sox days, and I really think he's logging a lot of innings on that slight frame of his, and with Sale and both David Price in this rotation, it's just a matter of time before one of these guys just hits the 60-day DL with separated rotator cuff or a dislocated elbow or some shit like that, and he's gone for the season. I really think one of these guys is due to be gone long term with the innings that they've logged over the last few seasons. And of course, one more note to add on my Red Sox, man, was that watching this team this season, just watching them play. You look at the postseason, you see the Astros, you see the Dodgers, you see the Yankees, you see all these teams, rooting for each other and cheering on and getting into the game and all the emotion on the field. Watching the Red Sox play was like watching paint dry. Even when they were winning, these guys were joyless, man. I'm not sure what the deal was there. Maybe it was just some discourse in the clubhouse. There's probably some division there because we all know that David Price is very outspoken and Chris Sale. So I mean, I don't know. I don't have any insider info or anything like that, but we see the firing of John Farrell after the season, and so that does give you an indication that there was that this was time for a change, and Farrell needed to go. Postseason success or no postseason success, I think this was his final year. It probably should have been 2015 when he had the cancer scare. The Sox did not perform well that season. But, of course, it doesn't look good from a PR standpoint if you fire a guy who's diagnosed with cancer. So
what do you mean? That's totally fine.
I think that really,
especially for heartless bastards in Boston.
That really saved his career in Boston, man. And of course,
you're absolutely right. It probably did buy him at least one more year.
Yeah. Basically, in a nutshell, disappointing season and changes afoot. We've got a new manager, Alex Cora.
Yes, as much as I lobbied for Brad Ausmus.
I really wanted to take over that hashtag Fire Ausmus catchphrase.
I wanted you to have it. You have no idea, and we will get to Jason in a minute. So there's still hope that the hashtag Fire Ausmus will live on. But finish your thoughts on Boston. Sorry to
no problem.
Interrupt again.
I'm pretty much finished here, but regardless, some success during the 2017 season for the Red Sox, mostly a disappointment, and I'm still a little cloudy on the future. I'm not sure how they're going to look in 2018 because there's so much change going on still at this time. But I look forward to every season, and 2018 is going to be no different. There'll be renewed excitement there come first game of the season. So, and I'll be there to the end with them as always. So, I got to kind of walk away from 2017 with a sour taste in my mouth.
Well, just to back up your point on Sale real quick, September/October, he is 11-16 in his career with a 3.78 ERA, which is easily his worst of any month. So I do think you're right. I think there is probably something to that slight build, that slight frame. I mean, he's a very tall guy, 6'5", 6'6", but yeah, he doesn't really have a lot of weight behind it.
Yeah,
so
get the man
maybe
a
he
cheeseburger.
does wear out. No kid. Well, yeah, just don't give him any scissors. Jesus Christ. Him and Sid Vicious, the Scissor Twins.
Ouch.
God, yeah. I remember that that was right before a start against the Tigers last year, and my phone came up with an alert, said Chris Sale will not pitch tonight, and I thought, oh, cool, maybe he's been traded, hot stove, starting early, and then we found out it was the scissor issue, and I just, I don't know. I went from not having any opinion on Chris Sale to thinking he was kind of a dickhead. And
so that may have something to do with just the whole joyless attitude on the field, even when they're winning.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. We'll get to my thoughts on the Tigers, but I know it's harder to win and harder to perform well at anything if you're not enjoying yourself, if you're not having a good time with what you're doing. So, Jason, let's talk about your boys, the Yankees. They surprised people. I think most preseason people had them anywhere from, maybe chasing and sniffing a wild card to bringing up the rear in the division. A lot of youth. Maybe some people thought maybe too much youth to really contend this year. Maybe 2018 was their year. But they stepped it up. They took a wild card spot and came within one game of the World Series. What went right for this team? Jason?
Where'd Greeny go?
I don't know. I can hear you, and Skype says he's online. I don't know. I don't hear him at all.
Let me,
Okay, let me send him a Facebook message and we'll see here.
Yeah, I don't see my phone burning up here. Let me see.
Okay. Okay. He says he's on.
Oh, okay.
So.
We can't hear him. Interesting.
Okay, he's gonna hang up, and you can just call him back. So we're making a little more work for our editor, but whatever. I think we've already crossed quite the bar when you said Farrell wasn't gonna get fired because of cancer, and I'm like, that's not that bad. Christ.
No, that's fine. You know what?
Yeah.
I think we need a little color like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all assholes, and our show rating balls, for God's sake, we can do that a little. I mean, shit, man. Listen, how much this was a wrestling Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
And it was list your 4 personal favorite wrestlers. And so I listed Arn Anderson, because he's amazing. Sting, because personally, he was the guy who got me in. And then I think my third guy was Barry Windham. Because, again, he was the guy that I always enjoyed watching. Or he might have been honorable mention. And then my fourth guy was Chris Benoit.
Ooh. And
holy shit, Brad, like the next morning, Brad's messaged me. He's like, wow, you're really getting us a lot of looks. But then the comments, I mean, people were just like, this guy's an idiot. Who the fuck is he? What's he talking about? What a moron.
I know.
And
there's still some people touchy about that very topic, man.
I know. And I guess I just didn't make it clear enough that, hey, I wasn't trying to advocate for what he did. I wasn't trying to absolve him. I was just simply saying, look, this article wants me to tell you who my top 4 wrestlers are personally. And yeah, when it happened, he wouldn't have been in the top 4, but enough time had passed to where, he still made it. So yeah, I'm okay with raising a little cane, I guess. I mean, we're not going to be the most offensive podcast out there, that's for sure.
No, I have no idea.
You guys hear me?
There he is.
Yeah, there we go.
Whoa, strange.
Yeah.
I
don't know what
happened. No idea what happened.
I finished talking.
Very strange.
I finished talking. He called on you and like, where's Greedy? We saw that you were still.
Yeah, I mean, I heard everything.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I have no clue. So.
Okay, well, we'll just keep an eye out for that in the future, and I've got Facebook open, so we can message if that happens again, I guess. And Thank God Scott's going to edit.
So. Yeah, I mean, he's used to this. It's happened a million times on Main Event and with him and Justin. It's an easy fix.
Yeah, it happened with us once or twice doing whatever the Sports Evolution thing. So
yeah, it happens.
All right. Well, we actually stopped at a pretty good spot with that. So Jason, the Yankees, that's your team. You follow them for some unknown reason. You sold your soul, and you're a Yankees fan, and that's. I realize I'm podcasting with a Red Sox fan and a Yankees fan. I am literally in some circle of hell. Add to the fact that my team sucks, and it gets even bigger. But Jason, the New York Yankees, they were expected, I think, by most people this year to finish maybe third in the division, possibly even bring up the rear. And yet they were 2 wins short of the World Series. They finished 91-71, won a wild card spot. What is it about this team that helped them defy expectations by so much?
I think that it was a mixture of veterans in the clubhouse, some that started out with them at the beginning of the season, and some that they brought in, kind of gathering the troops, as far as the rookies and your second year players, and a team just realizing that, you know what, our division isn't as powerful as people predicted. Let's go out and let's try and win this thing. I think bringing in Matt Holliday as a locker room leader kind of helped out, even though he was on the deal for the majority of the season, and then acquiring Todd Frazier for the trade deadline from the White Sox, the pride of Toms River, New Jersey, having him in the clubhouse along with Brett Gardner and CC Sabathia too, kind of leading the way for your Aaron Judge and for your Gary Sanchez and Didi and a few of the other younger guys. But yeah, I was all set for a third place finish, and being a Yankee fan and being a New York Jets fan in football, being a Yankee fan, I expect my team to win every year. I don't care what we have to work with. I want to win every season. Being a Jets fan, I just take what's put on my plate. An 8-8 season, great, perfect. That's like a Super Bowl win for us. But the Yankees have to win every season no matter what. And coming into the season too, I think it was okay. Are we going to have the continuation of Gary Sanchez from the hot way that he finished the 2016 season? Greg Bird had an outstanding spring training, and of course he got injured not too long after the season began. Masahiro Tanaka possibly going after a Cy Young. Severino, another baby bomber who could have a breakthrough season. CC Sabathia still having some back in the tank, and acquiring Chapman back from the Cubs after Joe Madden pretty much washed his arm out during the World Series. But we had a lot of pieces in place, but I think that there was just a connection among the players themselves, that they just want to go out there and have fun. And nobody ever thought that Aaron Judge was going to have the season that he did. Now, both offensively and defensively, it wasn't the best seasons overall for the team. Obviously, Gary Sanchez's offensive numbers were pretty consistent, but as a catcher, he has a lot of mechanics to work on. He does not know how to block balls. He's got a great arm down to second base, but there's a lot of miscommunication going on between him and the pitchers. I'm not sure if it's a language barrier or what, but that's something that he needs to adjust on. And we don't expect him to be Johnny Bench behind the plate right away. This is pretty much his first full season in the majors, so he's got a lot of improvement that he could make. It's just that people expect things to happen overnight, and being patient with somebody like Sanchez is something that we're going to have to get used to. So he'll be fine in a few years behind the plate. He needs to mature. And, there was some talk, oh, well, maybe catching isn't for him. No, he's the Yankees catcher moving forward, and he's got the tools, and he's not going anywhere. He's going to be our starting catcher. And just kind of going around the horn here with first base, with Greg Bird going on the DL, having Chris Carter as our first baseman was just an absolute embarrassment. The guy did what he could offensively. It's either going to be a strikeout or it's going to be a home run, and the guy couldn't even catch routine balls coming to first base. So just playing Russian roulette with our first basemen, having Chase Headley play some first base, and a few other guys too, kind of waiting to see if Greg Bird was going to be coming back to finish out the season, which fortunately he did. Acquiring a first baseman is something that we almost had to do come the trade deadline. But Bird came back, and he was one of the missing pieces that we needed down the stretch. Second base with Starlin Castro spending a little bit of time on DL. The DL time and when he came back, he quite the same as he was the first half of the season. Luckily, we had Ronald Torreyes, who is another guy, another young guy who in the clubhouse is a locker room leader. He's a fun guy to be around. You see all the antics that he does in the dugout. He came through for us playing second base a little bit. Shortstop with Didi Gregorius. Didi missed the first month of the season, injuring his shoulder in the World Baseball Classic, so he had to do a little bit of rehab. And Didi has proven to me that he might be the best transaction that Brian Cashman has made since becoming GM of the Yankees. We needed somebody to kind of fill a spot at shortstop when Jeter retired. And Gregorius, much like when we brought in Tino Martinez when Mattingly retired, it's kind of like a bandage wound. Somebody to bring in just until we find the next best person, whether acquiring a big time free agent or bringing somebody up through the system. But just like how Tino ended up being a phenomenal first baseman for the Yankees after Mattingly left, the same thing with Gregorius. He's turned out to be the exact guy that we were looking for when Jeter retired. At third base, Chase Headley, rocky start to begin the season. He made the adjustments that he needed to, and Headley was rumored to be traded. And he was a guy who, we didn't know when Greg Bird was going to come back. Headley was going to fill in at first base when we acquired Todd Frazier, and Frazier was going to play third base. And luckily, Girardi had a lot of pieces to mess with, much like his bullpen in the infield, by having Headley coming off the bench, by having Frazier come off the bench, giving each guy the days they needed to rest. Since we were going to make a run down the stretch for the wild card and perhaps the division. So the infield started out really rocky, but in the end, I think it was one of the best infields in baseball. In the outfield, Brett Gardner continued to be one of the better, I don't want to say one of the best, but one of the better leadoff guys in the league. Solid numbers. He hit something like 19 or 20 home runs, and for him that's like unheard of. One of the best defensive outfielders as far as flagging down balls. He doesn't have one of the best arms, but as far as flagging down balls and getting into the gap to make plays, he's one of the best in the league. In center field, having Aaron Hicks on and off the DL, Ellsbury on and off the DL. Neither one of those guys were quite the same after their DL stints, but they did what they could down the stretch. Having Clint Frazier come in too, having him play left field, putting Gardner in center field helped out a little bit too. And Clint Frazier is another guy, another one of the baby bombers who was hungry. He got called up with all the injuries in the outfield, put up some respectable numbers. And yeah, Red Thunder's a guy to keep a lookout for next season too. And of course, in right field, Judge. I mean, what can you say? The guy does everything. Nobody expected him to have this monstrous season. There was some big talk with having him be the starting right fielder coming out of spring training. Was it going to be him? Was it going to be Holiday? Because Holiday was brought in primarily to be the DH. Was Aaron Hicks going to be the right fielder? But Girardi and Cashman said Judge is our guy. We're going to go with him. So probably the most fun first half baseball that I've ever watched by a rookie, and pretty much, in the last 20 or 30 years, probably the most fun any baseball fan has watched somebody come along and have that kind of season. Had that slip coming out of the All-Star break and through August. But the thing with Judge is that his strike zone is not the same as anybody else in the league. The guy is 6'7", 6'8", 280 pounds. It's basically like having a tight end as a right fielder. There's no strike zone for this guy the same way that, he doesn't have the same strike zone as anybody else in the league. So for him to chase balls that are down, it's not like a guy like Altuve or somebody who's, at normal height for, to chase a ball down. Judge chasing the balls that are down, it's going to take him longer to adjust to not going for those. He overall is one of the most patient hitters, but that's a pitch that pitchers would throw to him, that ball down and away, and he would go for it. And that's something that he needs to lay away from, and that's why he had over 200 strikeouts this season. But that's something that can be fixed. But the overall presentation of the Yankees was just what a roller coaster season. And unfortunately, the way that we are here is that we made it. We weren't supposed to do anything this year, and we made it to the American League Championship Series. Nothing short than a World Series next year is going to be accepted.
Right. That is a great summation of the season. I certainly think Aaron Judge is a unique player, interesting player. And this is coming from someone who is not a Yankee fan. Kind of in jest, I poke fun at the fact that they're supposed to be hated. And there have been Yankee teams in the past, I will fully and totally admit, in my baseball fandom, there have been Yankee teams and Yankee players that I have just absolutely despised. Players that I just was like, if you never play again, I'll be happy. But that was not ever the case with this team for me. I completely agree with what Chris said about the Red Sox, that they did not seem like they were a fun, enjoyable bunch. They seemed very dour. It looked like in the dugout they were passing out lemons half the season. It really was a hard team to watch. But the Yankees were fun. I know there was late season. There was that thing they would do after a home run where the player would come in and they would do like a mock press conference interview where they'd have 5 or 6 guys kind of mob him like reporters and
right.
ask questions. And that's a hilarious, wonderfully fun thing that can, keep a team loose. And as much as we've talked about analytics taking front page, the idea of team chemistry, it gets talked about a lot, and it's probably talked about too much from time to time. But when you think about it, these guys spend 75% or more of their year together. And so they need to get along. You need to work with people that you like. You need to work with people that make it fun to come to work every day. And that's the same thing whether your office is Yankee Stadium or whether your office is a literal office. It does not matter. You need to enjoy what you do to do your best at it. And that seemed like that was the case with these guys. They really had a fun team and had a fun season, and they're well set up to the dismay and horror of everybody who's not a Yankee fan, they're well set up for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And it's an excellent team. Both of you guys are well set up for years of joy from your franchises. Chris, anything to add before we dive into the depths of hell that is the Tigers?
If I could just touch on something.
Go for it. Hello? Okay, who's still
I'm still here.
alive?
He was going to touch.
Okay.
I guess he can't hear us again. Yeah,
I'm still here too.
Oh, there he is.
Okay. Were you literally touching on something?
No, I can hear you guys. Chris, go ahead.
Okay.
No problem. I just wanted to say that just to harp on the Yankees again just a little bit. I'm a Red Sox fan. I'm a diehard Sox fan, lifetime Sox fan. I'm supposed to hate the Yankees, and this Yankees team, I can't hate them. I don't. For a few years now, the rivalry has cooled off, and I kind of come around on the Yankees. And when they weren't as successful, I kind of took pity on them a little bit because, hey, man, this is the Yankees. They and the Red Sox are supposed to be dogging it out for the AL East lead, and so I kind of softened on the Yankees a little bit. Now the team I hate, I want to say hatred's kind of a strong word, but I really don't like whatever team has Jose Bautista on their roster.
Yeah, I can.
I agree with that.
I can see why. He is a good player, fantastic hitter in his day. Exceptionally punchable face. It's
as we all know. So
and as Rougned Odor so lovingly proved, last year. That might be a good idea for our future show. Most hated ball players.
Most punchable faces.
Yes. Something along those lines. We will bring that.
Most punchable face in baseball. Yeah.
Yes.
And as a Yankee fan, just to kind of touch on something that you guys had spoke about, being a Yankee fan, this isn't the Yankee team that with what I call the $billion infield with A-Rod and Jeter and Robinson Cano and Teixeira that everybody had to hate. Don't hate the Yankees for the Yankees. Hate the Yankees because of us fans. We want you to hate us. We know that we're arrogant, obnoxious assholes. This team was so much fun to watch. The way that they presented themselves on and off the field was totally professional. Such a lovable team. So if you want to hate the Yankees for the Yankees, go right ahead. But the real reason why people should hate the Yankees is because of us fans. And we want you to hate the Yankees because of us fans.
Well said.
Yes, very well said. All right, so let's finish up the personal reflection story hour with my guys, the Detroit Tigers. I can keep this brief because unlike Chris's Red Sox and unlike Jason's Yankees, my team sucked. They were horrible. They were 58-74 at the end of August, which is not a good season by any stretch. But then something magical and wonderful happened. They traded Justin Upton and Justin Verlander, the last sort of remnants of competitiveness that were still on this club. Justin Upton, of course, had a very up and down first year for the Tigers, but this past season, he was just beloved. He was on his way to becoming one of the most popular players that this franchise has seen in a while. People were embracing his attitude. He was comfortable. He was hitting home runs, hitting walk-offs, and he was just a fun player to watch. We weren't worried about his contract. If he opted in, we thought, well, we like him, so it's okay. If he opted out, well, that was fun while it lasted. But we did the smart thing. We traded him to the Angels. Verlander, the man is an icon in Michigan and Detroit. Just an absolute joy to watch him pitch. You truly, truly felt that every time you watched him, you might see something magical. You might see a no-hitter. He's been that good. And because he represented the payoff to a decade plus of just Tiger futility from 93 to 03, 04. 03, we were the second worst team of all time, 43 and 119. And we felt like he was our reward the next year. We drafted second. We took Verlander. He was the pot of gold at the end of our rainbow for suffering through those seasons. And he brought so much joy to the city, so many Verlander jerseys, so many Verlander fans. Nobody could say anything really bad about the guy as a person, as a player. I personally met him once. I interviewed him once. He was an absolute pleasure to speak with. Professional, thoughtful, courteous, everything you could want as a journalist and a subject. But he represented something so powerful that when we traded him, and it's been well documented that it was very last minute, literally last minute that he decided to go to Houston. He all of a sudden had two cities rooting for him, and it's gratifying that he got a ring. I don't know him beyond one interaction with him, but it was gratifying that some nugget of success came out of this season for the Tigers. We're sort of, hanging on to that because we don't have much else to hang on to, quite frankly. This team, we knew it was coming. We knew it was coming probably 2 or 3 years ago. When Dombrowski was shown the door, it got louder. We thought, well, maybe in 16 they've got a shot, but that's probably it. Maybe in 17 they could pull off a miracle run and do something while the veterans are still there. They did not. I don't know of a stronger superlative than shit the bed, but that's what they did. In September and October combined, this team was 6-24. Just an absolutely abysmal ball club. They've revamped their farm system, which is lovely. They've gone from one of the worst to probably somewhere in the top half. But it's going to remain ugly unless the farm system can start producing, and that is not something the Tigers have done in a long, long time on a mass scale. Opinions are mixed on whether Avila, the general manager, Al Avila, can pull this off, but there's more optimism because of the talent that the Verlander and Upton and probably a Kinsler trade and some of these other deals. There is optimism, at least, but it's tempered, and many Tiger fans know we're in for a long, long, cold winter, and hopefully in a couple of years we are talking about a team on the rise, but right now this team sucks. And that's all I have to say about the shittiness that was the Tigers season. Oh, except for the fact that, can you guys guess, without looking, guess how many extra innings games the Tigers won this year?
I'm going to say 2.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say.
All right. You guys are off by one. They won one game in extra innings, and I just happened to be there with my family.
Woohoo!
Yes. Against the Blue Jays.
Even better.
About a week before I packed up my truck and made the drive back down to lovely, flat Wichita Falls, Texas.
Yeah.
So it was a good win to see, but that was their only extra inning win. They suck. They suck out loud.
As opposed to the Red Sox, who I believe played like maybe 18 extra inning games and won 15 of them. I believe that was the stat that I saw. It seemed like every other night the Red Sox were playing an extra inning game, and it got very tiring. I was thinking, can't these guys beat anybody in 9 innings? I mean, that's why you play 9 innings, right? I mean,
yeah, as if your games aren't already long enough.
Right, I know. And so let's tack on 6-7 extra more innings. So I mean, yeah. Count your blessings there, Sir Joel.
Yeah. Well, again, being a Tigers fan, that's pretty easy. It takes about one finger. Yes, you're correct. Boston, 15-3 in extra innings this season. So, all right, guys, I think this is a good spot to put in our break. I've got us clocked at about 50 minutes, just over that.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So,
yeah.
Do you happen to timestamp? Okay, cool. So we can take out when we dropped, and there was another.
Yeah. So I started a.
That way we can tell Scott.
Yeah. So the Skype timer has us at about 1 hour and 18 minutes total. And then I started a couple minutes after Chris started recording. I started an independent timer that's right now at 50 minutes.
Okay.
So I don't have an exact.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, the recorder I am using does not have a timer on it, so your guess would be as good as mine.
Okay. Well, we're at 50 minutes, so
I'm gonna go run to the restroom quickly and go have a quick smoke. I'll be back in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna see if I can ballpark a timestamp for you. Okay. So let's see.
I mean, if not, I can just stick around with Scott when he hits and let him know.
Okay. Well, it looks like it was about 30 minutes ago, so around the 25-minute mark, somewhere in that range, probably.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. We'll see you in a couple, Greenie. Oh, man, I didn't even talk about Jordan Zimmerman and how terrible he was.
Yeah, I know you were trying to sink your teeth into that, man. So.
Man.
It's just the things that come to your head after you've already talked about stuff, you know.
Yeah, well, you made the point. You made a very good point about Boston not looking like they were fun.
Yeah.
And Greenie made the opposite point, so I didn't want to make the point again. But this Tigers team never looked like they were having very much fun, and I may bring that up again when we talk about the managers because I really feel like that's an Ausmus thing. Yeah. This team looked bored as shit, and Zimmerman, I swear to God, I put up somewhere, I think on Facebook, I gave him a nickname that his next smile will be his first. And I'm serious about that. I've never seen that man smile.
Yeah, I've seen that over time, over the years. You know, I remember when John Lester was on the Red Sox. Now, you know, Lester's a good pitcher, but he's the guy when he stunk. It just seemed like nothing out there. There's no emotion out of them.
Doesn't he have he's got a rep as a bit of a red ass too, doesn't he?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, there's just especially when you're winning, or when you're losing by just a hair, and you're trying to fire your team up. That's what I want to see. You know, I want to see one guy out there just, you know, show some emotion and try to fire his team up. You know, but you just didn't get that with the Red Sox this year.
Yeah, right. No, you really didn't. And like I said, everybody that I talked to, every Tigers fan, we all knew that it was pretty likely the Tigers would not be good this year, but we figured, you know what? If everything goes exactly right, they could make the playoffs. If a few things go wrong, maybe they're 500 or ish. Nobody expected them to be so garbage that they got the number one draft pick. I don't think we saw that coming, at least until I think what everybody here envisioned, every Tigers fan I talked to, if you talked to them back in March, I think they expected we'll be competitive for a couple months, sell off some players at the break, be terrible in the second half, and end up maybe 75 wins. And that
seemed like to be a bit of a stretch in July.
A little, but I mean that was probably a reasonable outcome until the September collapse, and I was down here in September, and holy shit, I watched games sometimes just to see how bad it got. I mean, I'm not kidding. I was like, let's see how inept they are.
Yeah. Do you think there was well, I mean, I'm not talking. I guess you can't really do it on the field, but do you get the sense of any tanking on the Tigers' part, really?
I don't know how do you define tanking? Do you mean like losing on purpose as a front office tactic, or?
Well, I guess in a sense, tanking is the front office is hedging their bets on draft picks, and so
yeah.
And building the farm system. So I really think maybe there was that focus that, like, hey, let's just forget about you and start building to the future. Who gives a shit about the product on the field right now?
Right. I don't think that it was deliberate. I think Avila I think he's more of an old school guy, although he's a new GM, and so he's trying to embrace analytics. They have introduced, you're going to love this if you haven't heard about it. The Tigers have introduced an analytics system, and you know how teams give nicknames to their acronyms, like there's Pacoda and there's a few others out there.
Yeah.
You want to guess what the Tigers acronym is for theirs? Just guess. Just throw something out there. It's great.
I don't know, an acronym. I don't know, SHIT.
No, they do not employ Rosie. No. All right. It's Caesar.
It's Caesar.
As in Little Caesar's Pizza.
Oh.
Mike Ilitch's bread and butter. I absolutely love that. It's so. I'm sure that there's some nerd in their marketing department who, like, probably has a shirt that says, "Yes, I came up with this." I absolutely adore that, but no, I don't think that the Tigers were tanking. I think that they were looking at it sort of from perspective of, we're not going to win. Let's move everybody we can and build up our farm system. But I don't think it was deliberate. I think now it's going to be. I think from here on, it's going to be a very deliberate sort of look. We know we're going to put shit out there for a couple years, but a lot of people.
I got to say though, Joel. I mean, how many 100-win teams did we have this year? 4.
Yeah.
We had 4 100-win teams. I mean, I don't know. What was the stat? Has that ever happened before?
I don't believe so.
I think it was the first time that happened, and I gotta wonder. I mean, that had to mean that there were quite a few really shitty teams out there. I mean, there was really the great teams, and then there were some okay teams, and then from there it was like everybody else is shit.
Well, I'm looking at the numbers, and let's see, where's the National League here? Oh, okay. The Tigers were shit. The Phillies were shit. The Reds were shit. The Giants were really bad. The Padres were really bad. So there were quite a few really bad teams. Oakland was terrible. So yeah, there was quite a foundation of really poor teams.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of underperformers too. That's
That makes me wonder though how many teams are going the same route that the Astros took.
Yeah, well, we've seen it with the Astros and to an extent with the Cubs, and we've seen, and the White Sox are definitely doing it.
Yeah, they're definitely doing it.
Absolutely, and I think the Phillies did it. They just haven't reaped the benefits yet. The Reds kind of are doing that, but they have a really good offense on the field. They just can't get any pitching. And that's the hard part. That's the trick. You can tank the shit out of your season, but if you're not developing your prospects, then you're just going to stay bad. And that's my concern with like the Tigers. I mean, they've brought in a lot of great guys. Like the guys they brought in for Verlander, the pitcher they brought in is now their top prospect. And he's got an ETA of about 2 years. They brought in Mike Cameron's kid, Daz, who's an outfielder, and he's in their top 10. And they brought in a catcher who I think is just outside of their top 10. So they brought in quite a bit of talent. The guy they brought from the Cubs for Alex Avila and Justin Wilson, he's already their starting third baseman, and he looks like a definite keeper. So there's some diamonds, but yeah, I think the danger is, can you develop enough pitching to stop tanking at some point? Can you develop enough talent to turn off the leaky faucet? Houston did it. The Cubs did it. The Phillies have not done it yet. You could say maybe the Diamondbacks have done it, but I don't know. I think last year they were kind of unlucky also. But tanking is the new black. That's definitely in vogue for sure. Yeah. But like I said, it just depends.
Oh yeah.
It just depends on how quickly can you develop that talent once you get it. And if you can develop it, you can be good in a heartbeat. If you can't develop it, then you're going to stay bad, and then we're going to see more 90 and 100 win ball clubs, and more 90 and 100 loss ball clubs to go with that. It actually shocked me that we did not have a 100 loss team this year. Nobody. Tigers lost 98. Giants lost 98. Phillies lost 96. Reds lost 94. And the White Sox lost 95. But that's it. So
yeah, well,
it'll be fascinating to follow and see.
Yeah, it would. And as the show develops, we could probably revisit that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, your teams are good, so you guys have lots to talk about. My team is fucking garbage. That's okay. I'm not alone. Lots team also sucks. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are at about 50 minutes or so of show time. So why don't we do the managers kind of as a rapid fire thing, and then go to the World Series and then hit Tanaka and Upton again, kind of sort of rapid fire. And I still want to do the awards because I don't think we'll do another show before that, because they're coming out. They're coming out starting this week with the defensive stuff, and then next week with the actual awards. So yeah, we can do.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got the schedule up here. They start pretty damn soon. Yeah, the first one is November 14th, so I don't think we'll record again before that, and then we'll hit Thanksgiving just as soon as they're over. So,
yeah, they stretch them out.
Yeah, oh God, they do. Like a cheap pair of tights. It's amazing. They've got that's something else we should talk about sometime. They've got too many goddamn awards. Stop it. These guys are millionaires. They don't need your pity. Sorry. Okay. No, I was debating on getting more scotch, but I'll be fine. Okay, so I'm going to come back in just a second. Okay. So do we want to just go to the managers then? Straight up?
Yeah, sure. We can do that.
Okay. Okay, welcome back, Nation.
That's fine.
Thanks, Greenie. Cut that. Okay. Welcome back, Nation. You are listening to the first Breaking Balls baseball podcast with Joel, Chris, and Jason. We talked about the 2017 season in depth, and now we're going to just hit up on some of the off-season goings-on, including the manager merry-go-round that seems to have hit like a whirlwind after the World Series. Greenie, we'll start with you, because I'm sure you've got plenty of opinions as your beloved Yankees. 86 Joe Girardi, and they are one of the teams without a replacement. So what were your thoughts on Joe's tenure, and who are some of the favorites to take his spot? Hello? God damn it. Did this happen again?
I don't know. I think Greenie might be on some kind of delay too. Hang on.
He definitely on a slight delay.
Let's see. I just messaged him.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why it's on his end. I don't know if it's got something to do with he was the third person added or what.
I don't know. I've done the three-way call before on my other podcast, and generally haven't had this issue, but
yeah.
He's wait. He's hanging up. He's hanging up again.
Yeah. Okay, well, you get him back.
When Scotty gets to this point in the editing, good luck, Scott. Appreciate the help.
Yeah.
Appreciate the help, man.
Yeah,
you guys there?
Sorry. Yeah, we are.
Okay.
All right, so I'm just going to start completely over from the break so Scott can cut all of that rubbish. So, welcome back, Nation, to the inaugural episode of Breaking Balls, your baseball podcast with me, Joel Barnhart, and Chris Jordan and Jason Greenhouse. We just wrapped up our discussion of the 2017 Major League season that was, and we've already had a lot of off-season intrigue, including a manager merry-go-round. Jason, we're going to start with you. Your beloved Yankees let go Joe Girardi. And so what are your thoughts on Joe's tenure, Joe's firing, and who might replace him in the dugout in 2018?
As far as his tenure as Yankee manager, obviously the numbers speak for itself. Since he came in 2008, I believe it was, after he replaced Torre, did not finish below 500 for his entire tenure as Yankee manager. I've always thought that catchers make the best managers just because they see the entire game as they're playing. And Joe being one of them, along with several other former catchers, term managers, in particular Mike Scioscia and Joe Torre even. But Joe was also given a team that was already established when he came in 2008, and by the time he left, there was, I think, 2, maybe 3 players left from that team. CeCe Sabathia came in 2009. Brett Gardner was on the way up in 2009. Tyler Clippard was actually on the '09 Yankee World Series team, and fortunately for us, we traded him to come the trade deadline, and getting David Robertson back during the trade deadline is another guy who was there in '08, '09. It was very heartbreaking to hear that he was not coming back. I always liked Joe as a manager. He was a guy who always sacrificed himself for his players. If anybody's ever seen a Joe Girardi umpire argument on the field, you get your money's worth every single time. In the end, he never gave up on the team, but the team did give up on him. And the players that he had on the team, I think that they need somebody who is going to have to baby them a little bit, kind of give them some pats on the back. Joe's a very intense guy. He's a guy who wears his intensity on his sleeve. He's not going to give out hugs. He's not going to give out slaps on the ass. Occasionally you'll get a high five. But he's not a lovable guy unless it's his family. He's an old school manager. He's very, very Buck Showalter. And that's where him leaving, I can understand that. Excuse me. If you take a look at when Joe Torre came in as the Yankees manager in 1996, replacing Buck Showalter, it was pretty much the same thing as what Girardi was going through this year, where you have all the young players coming up mixed with some veterans, but obviously the young players are going to be the future of the team. They're going to need somebody who's going to give them, the hugs and the pats on the ass and stuff like that. And that's what Torre had, or I'm sorry, that's what Torre did with guys like Jeter and Bernie and Mo and Pettit. These were the young Yankee prospects who were brought up, and that's what Joe Girardi did. That's what Joe Torre did for them. All of these guys, Jeter, Pettit, Mo, they all saw Torre as a father figure. These young guys do not see Joe Girardi as a father figure. And, it's almost like when you're a kid and you have a babysitter, you're either going to get, that old, nasty Grinch of a babysitter, or you're going to get the cute-looking next-door neighbor babysitter that's going to hug on you and kiss on you. And that's what Yankees need right now. They don't need that old, grizzly, well, Girardi's not an old guy, but they don't need the guy that's not going to, babysit the young guys. So as far as guys to bring in, there's, I'm reading on Twitter from guys like Joel Sherman and John Heyman. Apparently there's about 20 to 25 guys they're going to be looking at, which is astonishing. From what I've heard, they're going to be staying internally with guys who have worked within the Yankee organization. And just to name a couple of guys who I think would fit it, and hopefully one of them lands it. First off would be Tony Pena, a veteran coach with the Yankees, both bench coach and this past season first base coach. Another former catcher who could work very well with Gary Sanchez. Very respectable guy within the organization. Brian Cashman loves him. Apparently all the players are very, very fond of him too. So seeing Tony Pena come in, I would like, and I believe Tony's in his early 60s, which is not bad. And also the Yankees are looking for a younger guy, not like a Dusty Baker or somebody who who's gone from team to team. Tony Pena, I think, only managed one team, and that was maybe the 07 or 08 Astros, if I'm not mistaken. But besides that, he's just been primarily a bench coach and a first or a third base coach. The second guy, Al Padrique, who is the AAA manager for the Yankees in Scranton Wilkes-Barre. The guy who coached Aaron Judge and Severino and Gary Sanchez and Greg Bird and all these guys in AAA. Bringing him up would be fantastic. He's a guy who, again, within the organization, very well respected. Only difference is in the minors, you need to develop players. In the majors, you have to win games. So even if you win 20 games in the minors and your team is still developing and your players are developing, it's a success. You need to do everything in the majors. And I don't know if that's something that Pedrique can handle, but as far as his relationship with the players, it's already there because they played for him. Another guy who has an outside chance, I think, would be John Flaherty, another former catcher with the Yankees, a guy who does he's a Yes studio analyst on the Yes Network, along with Jack Curry and Bob Lorenz. He's been in the organization for a while. He played for the Yankees in when was he there? 04, 05, I believe. He does Old Timers Day every year. But a guy who definitely, if he doesn't get the manager position in the big leagues, definitely a guy who they could put in a AA or AAA level to kind of develop him as a coach too. Another guy whose name has been floating around has been Jerry Hairston Jr. And I don't think that he's had much managerial experience. He's in the Dodger organization now, I believe. But he's a guy who Brian Cashman likes. Again, another guy who I don't think is ready to manage in the majors. But if by chance Pedrique does get the job, I think that Jerry Hairston Jr. Would fit in perfectly with Scranton Wilkes-Barre, either managing them or just bringing him on right away as like a bench coach or like a third base coach. The guy who I think is going to get it is going to be a guy who, for the past 18 to 20 years, has ran Yankee spring training. He's been with the organization for a while. He's a guy who has been quoted as a guy who lives the Yankee gimmick as far as when he travels. He doesn't travel in sweatpants and track suits and stuff. He travels in suits because he's traveling and he's representing the New York Yankees. He was their bench coach this year, so he coached a little bit when Girardi got tossed from about 7 or 8 different games, and that's Rob Thompson. I think that he's a perfect fit. Young guy, probably in his mid-50s. Very, very good relationship with the Yankees. With the young players on the Yankees. He's seen a lot of changes go on in the clubhouse as far as player development. So I think that Rob Thompson would be the perfect fit for the position right now.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how, because the Yankees have such a young core and have such a fun core, it will be very fascinating to see who they bring in and why. It's definitely the most intriguing managerial slot that there is currently available, I think, because the difference between a great manager and a bad manager, if you're going in that direction, isn't, huge. But the difference between like a mediocre manager and a bad manager is pretty significant. And again, with so many of these guys being fairly young in their baseball careers, you really need to bring in a good hand that can steady them, stabilize them, and see them through the inevitable growing pains that some of them have yet to experience. I mean, Aaron Judge, for example, he had an amazing season, but we all know that second-year players often regress, and the manager that they bring in has to be able to alternately both hold Aaron's hand and say, hey, you're fine, and also be able to kick his ass and say, wake up, stop swinging at shit. So that's going to be a very interesting search.
Right.
In the interest of time, let's move to, oddly enough, the second member of our panel, Chris Jordan. Your Red Sox fired Farrell. Now, we kind of touched on this already, but what are your thoughts on Farrell leaving and Alex Cora getting the gig?
Right, yeah. Now, as I mentioned earlier, obviously watching this 2017 Red Sox team was a huge letdown. Just you could see the demeanor on field really kind of doom and gloom even when they were winning. And, after each win, the Red Sox outfield, Benintendi, Jackie Bradley Jr., Mookie Betts, they had this little routine where this little dance routine in the end. And by the end of the season, that routine seemed to turn into some sort of group prayer, and that's what it resembled on field anyway. So I mean that probably is an indication of somebody in the dugout maybe saying something to them and having them asking them to tone it down a little bit. Maybe it looks like they're showing the other team up or something. And one of the veterans probably had to say something to them about that. And I really think that speaks volumes about the control or lack of John Farrell had over the clubhouse. I think he was probably more mechanical in his managerial style than anything else. And just kind of the Sox seemed kind of tired by the end of the season, and there was no energy there. And that starts at the top. When you're on the field, that starts at the top. And I think Farrell maybe lost his passion for it for whatever reason, but clearly it was change. Now with Alex Cora, he spent the last few seasons as the bench coach for A.J. Hinch on your world champion Houston Astros. So hopefully the feeling is that he'll bring some of that attitude over to the Red Sox and, let the young guys, be fun and have fun playing the game and, let some of that emotion out on the field. I have no problem with, contrary to some respects, I know there's a lot of people who don't like to see, there's a lot of old school baseball fans who preach, act like you've been there before. And I disagree with that. I really think, the game's supposed to be fun, whether you're winning or losing, and I think, letting that out on the field is a good thing. And I think the Red Sox need that, especially since they have a young core now on the field. Of course, the veteran presence is mostly on the pitching mound with Sale, Porcello, Price, guys like that. And there needs to be some team unity there because I really don't think that's something that exists there as well. We had some off-the-field issues, Price versus the media, Price versus Eckersley. I'm not sure. Maybe Price versus the clubhouse guy ran the steam baths or something. I don't know, but I think we really got to have Corey get everyone on the same page, and I think he's going to bring some of that from Houston with him. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can bring to the table for 2018.
Yeah, he's definitely again a very interesting, fascinating hire. It'll be interesting to see if such a young, inexperienced manager runs into any trouble. I know Boston recently also brought in La Russa. There's a lot of talk on both sides of that. Is La Russa going to shadow Cora in a positive way, in a mentoring way, or is he going to shadow him in a, hey, if you screw up, I'm just going to take your job, kid, kind of way? And that'll be something to watch as we move forward. So other managerial comings and goings, and we'll kind of hit these a little more rapid fire, gentlemen. Just quick thoughts here. Dusty Baker, they got to the playoffs again. Washington got bounced. His contract was up, and the Washington ownership said, see ya, instead of renewing him or renegotiating. Your thoughts quickly, again, we'll start with Jason, on Baker and his replacement, Davey Martinez.
Yeah, Dusty Baker, okay manager with several other teams, a little too old school to manage the what the Nationals needed right now. As far as Davey Martinez goes, the perfect fit there. The only other perfect fit would have been for them to pick up Joe Girardi, just because of all the veterans that they have on Nats, and Girardi working better with veterans than with young talent. But yeah, I think Davey Martinez is going to bring a lot of what he learned from Joe Madden with the Cubs over to the Nats. And hopefully, the next couple of years, we don't see another National League Division Series choke job by the Nats.
Okay. All right. And Chris, another managerial move in Philly, Gabe Kapler. Any thoughts on Philadelphia bringing in another fresh, young, inexperienced guy to head this ball club?
Yeah, I think that's the breath of fresh air that the Phillies need. I mean, they've been stagnant for quite a while with the rebuild, and the rebuild is going a little bit slower than they thought. A few of their key young players kind of regressed a little bit. We talked about Mako, and thank goodness Rhys Hoskins came along to actually generate some kind of interest in Philly this year. But Kapler himself, he's a grinder, the way he was in his playing days. I think he's also going to bring, that equal approach with him as well. And I think this is a little something what the Phillies needed. He's got some experience because he retired, I believe, after the 07 season for 1 year, and he was, I think, a manager down in Single A. And so
yes,
there's a little bit of experience there with young players, and of course he came back and played a few more years after that. But hopefully for the Phillies, he'll take a good, solid approach with the young guys and help them progress where they need to, because the Phillies are supposed to be, I believe, at this point, they're supposed to be, pretty close to contenders, and hasn't been the case yet. And I think Kapler will be a good touch for them with a little bit of aggressive attitude, but also the analytical approach as well. I think it's a good combination.
Yeah, definitely interesting hire. Should be an interesting fit as well, just to see, like you said, how he blends that analytical approach with the young players who do need to start producing. You hit it right on the head. The Phillies, they started rebuilding a few years back and have not seen the progress that the Cubs and the Astros have seen with their work. So the Phillies definitely need a jump start, and perhaps their new manager can do that. So we'll jump from Gabe Kapler, former Tiger, to Brad Ausmus, also former Tiger. Terrible manager his first time out. As Chris and I and Jason, as we've alluded to, for several years, my Facebook feed was always punctuated with the hashtag Fire Ausmus. Facebook, Twitter, you name it, I put it on there. Fire Ausmus. This is a good sandwich. Fire Ausmus. This team is wonderful. Fire Ausmus. Actually took some flack from friends of mine for that posting. They thought it was blissfully negative, and I had to tell them, hey, it's just a joke. But that aside, Brad was not a good fit for the Tigers ball club. He was too lenient. I don't think he was far enough removed from his playing days to understand what a manager has to do to separate himself. There's a lot of talk that he kind of turned the clubhouse into almost like a sort of relaxed, almost a resort type atmosphere where I think his idea was maybe I'll let the guys police themselves, and that didn't always work out. There are a lot of rumors of friction with him and Victor Martinez, especially this year as Victor struggled to produce and dealt with health issues. Even got to the point where I read a few things that said they should just cut Martinez because he was that negative of an influence. So, and of course, he's 39 years old. He makes quite a bit of money. He's a sunk cost. So that remains to be seen. But what is certain is Ausmus is out. I would put even money on him just sitting out this season and maybe seeing if he can pick up a job for 2019. Ron Gardenhire's in. I think if he can have a steadier, sturdier hand in the clubhouse, be more of that Jim Leland sort of whip them into shape, tough love kind of guy, I think that's what this team needs. They need a veteran who leads them. I do not believe Ron Gardenhire will manage the next Tigers contender, but I think for what the team is trying to do in its rebuild and its acquisition of young talent who need a strong, firm leader, he should be in a good spot. He's not going to make a bit of difference in terms of wins and losses, but that's secondary to what's happening in the Motor City right now. So, gentlemen, let's move along to our next segment. Let's talk a little bit about off-season hot stove business. We will certainly touch on this more in the future, so no need to go in depth, but we've seen two significant moves this off-season already. The first, actually both of them happening this week, just days ago. The first is Justin Upton signing a 5-year deal with the Angels. It's just an extension of his current contract that he signed with Detroit, but they renegotiated the pay. They tacked on extra year. And in my view, I think that's a great fit. Anaheim needed a power bat behind Trout. Pujols is just basically nothing anymore. Productively speaking, he's about as useless as a guy who hits 25 home runs can be. So getting that second bat in that lineup helps to solidify their offense quite a bit. And as I said earlier, seems like a really fun player to watch and should be a good fit in Anaheim. Greeny, since I'm going to go to you with the next hot stove move, Chris, do you have any thoughts on Upton and the Angels?
Well, yeah. From one perspective, it's a good signing for the Angels from, like you said, an offensive standpoint behind Trout. And I don't think Pujols is as bad as you made him out to be, Joel. But we know we had that ESPN article earlier in the season that basically stated that Albert Pujols was the worst player in MLB. That was just based on, his WAR stats. But 25 home runs, 100 RBIs is still nothing to sneeze at, even if he's hitting 230 and can only go, station to station in terms of base running. But Pujols is still a bit of a threat, although it's not the threat that Trout needs to protect him. But on the other end of things, the Angels, in signing Upton for 5 years, haven't really learned anything from the Pujols signing, and it's still kind of a head scratcher, I guess, a little bit in terms of the length of the contract and the money involved. Upton did have a resurgence this season, and probably the best season in his career to date. But I think what the Angels needed to do is hunt down some pitching. Their farm system is somewhat depleted in terms of talent, and so I really think they need an arm in their rotation, a healthy arm, I might add, since they've had so many troubles with starters getting bounced to the DL. So maybe there's more moves to come for the Angels to try and help them compete with the Astros. I don't think Justin Upton is the answer. He's not the complete answer, but I think it's a small step forward for them, I think, in order to solidify that lineup a little bit.
Okay, and the other big thing, the big news, Greeny, possibly your favorite pitcher in existence, if your Facebook feed is to be believed on days when he throws, Masahiro Tanaka sticking with New York. What does this mean for a New York team that they've got Severino? He looks like an ace. Sabathia, how much more does he have in the tank? They needed this, didn't they?
Yeah, need this big time. And 3 years, $67 million. I mean, chump change to re-sign him. Absolutely incredible to get him for this cheap. Yes, Tanaka is my favorite Yankee pitcher. Has been since he joined the Yankees. And yeah, I mean, instead of going out and and doing a little shopping for free agent pitchers who they're gonna, they would have to open up the wallet a little bit for, maybe like an Arrieta and a few others. But yeah, we signed Tanaka. I didn't think that he was going to opt out, even when he was struggling a little bit during the season, and he had a little. Actually, I think he had 2 DL stints this season. But then there was talk about Tommy John surgery and this and that. None of that, thankfully, was true. It's just he had to work on some mechanics, and just a couple of nicks and knacks, little wear and tear on his arm a little bit. But yeah, cheap re-sign for the Yankees, and I'm very excited. He's also a guy who could who's now a veteran, and could work with Jordan Montgomery, and a few other pitchers, Dylan Betances, work with them a little bit, guys who the Yankee baby bomber pitchers, especially Betances, who struggled down the stretch. But yeah, I'm very excited about this.
So there's going to be more hot stove stuff to come, of course. Free agent lists are all over the place. This year's crop, not as whopper and not as blockbuster as what we've got next year with Harper, Machado, and potentially Kershaw. But we'll save that talk for another day. Gentlemen, let's move along to the World Series and talk for a few minutes about this amazing, fantastic 7-game nirvana between Houston and Los Angeles. Chris, what stood out to you other than just the fact that Houston won their first title in 56 years?
What stood out most for me was the fact that, these two teams had to grind out each and every win in the series. Most, other than Game 7, of course, the first 6 games of the series were all decided by 2 runs or less. I believe it was Game 4 that was tied at 1 in the 9th inning, and the Dodgers scored a 5 spot there. Every game was a grind, and just the emotional roller coaster of just going along with them. And it was just an amazing series for those first 6 games. And of course, I just had a feeling we were going to be let down with a blowout Game 7. It wasn't a blowout, but the Astros controlled it from the onset, and kind of disappointed in that Game 7. But with that said, this is probably at best it's a top 10 World Series for me all time.
Yeah, it was a fantastic series, and I remember after seeing Game 1, Dodgers 3, Astros 1, I thought, okay, this has the potential to be a sweep. The Astros bats look awful damn quiet. Yes, they're facing Kershaw, but they didn't seem to even put anything constructive together. It really looked like they might be, just worn out from that battle with the Yankees. And then you have Game 2. Game 2, Houston takes a lead in the 3rd inning. Dodgers tie it up in the 5th. Dodgers get a couple more. 8th inning, Astros get 1, make it 3-2. 9th inning, Astros tie it up. You're thinking, oh, that's amazing. We're going to extras. Houston gets 2, Dodgers get 2, going to the 11th. Astros get 2 more, Dodgers get 1 more. It's a 7-6 Houston win. And I think that's really the game where this series took on a life of its own and really became something special. Greeny, same kind of question to you. When did this series really become a holy shit series for you?
I think that Game 5, 13-12 game, which was unbelievable postseason baseball. It's the stuff that as a baseball fan, it's the kind of games that you dream about to see in the World Series. And besides that, like after Game 1 or Game 2, it's like, okay, this is going to be after Game 1, okay, cool, this is going to be a pitching matchup World Series like we kind of expected, and it was like a 2-1 game, and then Game 2, 7-6. But yeah, this back and forth, pinball Game 5 was like, holy shit, this is going to be right up there with the 0-1 series between the Yankees and Arizona, and in 2011 with the was it Rangers and Cardinals?
Cardinals, yes, that was.
I believe.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, with the Pujols 3 home run game and everything. But yeah, Game 5 kind of set the tone for it. Like, yeah, this is going to be pretty damn awesome. A couple of disappointments. I would say the way that Dave Roberts kind of managed his bullpen going down the stretch too. Partially his fault, partially I guess a little bit of a choke job on the pitchers themselves. But I mean, coming into this, they had the complete package. They had definitely the stronger bullpen than Houston did. Stat wise, their starters, could have gone deeper overall than Houston. I mean, Houston had Keuchel and Verlander, but the Dodgers had better starting pitching overall, which is kind of a letdown. But yeah, this Houston team, just really really fun to watch. Coming into the World Series, I kind of disliked them just because of the way that Joe Buck presented them in the Yankee series. He made me dislike them. But after Game 7, you really got to appreciate this team. And, a guy like George Springer, the guy who they built this team around, several years ago. And just seeing him become clutch in this series, which is so fun to watch. And guys who were former Yankees, who didn't get rings, them McCann and Beltran, having them get rings, couldn't be any happier for them, especially Beltran, who's been in the league for 20 years, and he finally gets his ring, which I was really happy to see.
Yeah, there were so many great storylines for this series, so many great possibilities. As we said, I personally had rooting interest I wanted to see Verlander get his ring because, like I said, he was the payoff for that terrible 03 season. He was the face of the rebuild for Detroit. He went to the World Series with Tigers in 06 and in 12 and lots of other playoff opportunities and just never got his ring. Now he does. Cameron Maybin, another former Tiger, got a ring that made me happy personally. I also enjoyed watching, Altuve and Correa, who is just, so good at everything. I often think of I believe it was 1992 when the Yankees had the number 6 pick in the draft, and they could have drafted this kid out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, Derek Jeter. They were going to draft this kid, and
who?
Long time. I don't know. Some kid. I don't know. Long-time Tiger pitcher. So I'm tying it all together here. Hal Newhouser said, draft this Jeter kid. And they drafted Chad Mottola instead. Newhouser was so pissed he quit. He just said, I'm done because you're not listening to me. So in a way, I feel like Correa is, 25 years later, he's the make good on that missing out on Jeter. Because that's who he could be, except, he can go to his left.
Oh, that's a dig.
Now, a little bit. I got to get one in. But your point, Jason, about the pitching, care to guess the best Astros, we'll say, I won't say starter because he only started one game, but the best Astros pitcher who pitched the most regularly for them in the regular season? It wasn't Keuchel. It wasn't Verlander.
Was it Morton?
It was, yeah. 10 innings.
Was it Morton,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So Keuchel, 10 1/3, 5.23 ERA. Verlander, 12 innings, 3.75. Then you have McCullers, 7 2/3 innings, 3.52. And then you jump to Charlie Morton, this, injured, cast-off, pitched just a few last year with the Phillies before he got hurt. Astros got him for 2 years, $14 million. He pitches 2 games, 10 and a third innings, 11 strikeouts, 1 walk, a 1.74 ERA. If I don't give the MVP to Springer, I think he's the next guy in line. He was huge for that pitching staff, just tremendous. But we can't take away from the Dodgers either. They had this amazing team all year, and they are good bets to be excellent next year as well. It was interesting to watch how that pitching staff got manipulated. Darvish probably cost himself a bit of free agent money with his dismal World Series performance. But they're still a hell of a ball club. And I don't think it would shock any of us if we see a Houston-LA rematch in October of 2018.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, gentlemen. So we've got one more segment we wanted to tackle. Coming up at the beginning of, not next week, but the week after. Coming up November 14th, MLB starts announcing their major awards. Of course, they have a laundry list of minor awards that they give out. Gold Glove, Silver Sluggers, Wilson defensive players, all kinds of things. Rolaids Relief, Fireman of the Year, blah, blah, blah. You name it, they give out an award for it. I think they give out an award for Best Mustache now. It's a bit much, but they start on November 13th with the Rookie of the Year. 14th, Managers. 15th, Cy Young. And, of course, 16th is the big one, the MVP. So we're going to go talk about who we think's going to win and our preseason picks. Who did we think would win way back in March? I'll start with the American League. We're going to go in the same order that MLB will. Rookie of the Year. I think I know your answer. I think anybody with a functioning set of earballs knows your answer. AL Rookie of the Year, who you got?
Yeah, Andrew Benintendi definitely. No. I mean, it's got to be Judge, right?
Yeah, in a landslide of epic proportions.
Yeah, Aaron Judge. Just record-breaking home runs. The guy struck out 200 times. He's a rookie. Give him a break. Like I said before, his strike zone and him swinging at low pitches, that's something that he's going to adjust to. But also the way that he handled himself throughout the season, he handled himself like a veteran would with the media, especially during the All-Star break. The guy was everywhere, and everywhere that he went and was interviewed by the media, he was humbled the entire time. He didn't think that he belonged there. The home run derby win, him just knocking balls from Miami down Cuba. He remained humble the entire season.
Okay, and Chris, I think you would agree, Aaron Judge, AL Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, it's not even going to be close. Judge for Rookie of the Year. And I might want to add on top of what Jason said, during the first half of the season, baseball, sports media in general was declaring Judge the face of MLB. I tend to disagree with that at this juncture since Mike Trout's still living and breathing, but regardless of that, Judge is a landslide for Rookie of the Year. There's no question about it.
Yeah, no argument here. Easy pick. National League, I feel like it's the same thing. I would say Cody Bellinger of the Dodgers. He set a team rookie home run record. Didn't even play a full season for him, but really was a huge factor in the success of that team. He's just 22 years old, 39 home runs, more than any other rookie not named Aaron. Although Judge technically debuted last year. But Bellinger, another thing that people might overlook is he played first base, he played left, right, and center for them this year. So he's versatile, and he's a hell of a good player. probably their first baseman next year with Adrian Gonzalez walking away, but he's my pick for the NL award. Jason, what do you think? Oh, God damn it. Did this happen again? I think it may have.
Yeah, gosh, I gotta wonder what's going on there, man.
I don't know, because I can hear myself.
No, he's on a delay.
Yeah, and I can hear myself finish my own question. So he's on that delay. But why this is happening, I don't know. So.
Oh yeah, he's cussing right now. So.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Thank God this is our last segment.
Oh, yeah, I don't. I've not experienced this issue before, so I don't know.
Are you guys there?
There you are, man.
Yeah, we're
good.
Okay.
So,
all right. Yeah, I think maybe next time I could be the third person and we could.
Yeah, call me first. It's weird because the same thing happens to Nate and a few other people when they're the third person that's called.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so we'll note that for the next one then. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. All right. So timestamp wise, my clock just turned to 1:51, but I started a bit early, so approximately 1:55 in the actual recording of the actual show. 2:20 for the call itself. A little bit before that.
All right.
Okay. So, all right. So I'm just going to start over with just asking you.
With Bellinger.
Yeah. So Jason,
okay.
I've got Bellinger as my rookie of the year for the National League. Great season for the Dodgers. 39 home runs, broke the rookie record for homers by a freshman. Played first, left, center, right, and probably their starting first baseman going in next year unless they make some kind of personnel move with Adrian Gonzalez. What are your thoughts on the National League Rookie of the Year situation?
Yeah, it's going to be a landslide. Bellinger definitely. But what a phenomenal season. He reminds me a lot, not just at bat, but playing first base. He reminds me a lot of Mark Teixeira. This is a kid who, left-handed, Teixeira was a switch hitter, but, just the way that he swings the bat as a lefty was a lot like Teixeira, and he also plays first base like Teixeira does. Teixeira used to play first base like a goalie would play in hockey, and that's exactly what I saw with Bellinger. So yeah, another landslide for Rookie of the Year.
Okay, and Chris, are you on board here, or are you going to go with Manuel Margot of the San Diego Padres?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, but you mentioned that. I really think I'm more interested in seeing who the Raiders come up with runner-up for NL Rookie of the Year, because I'm not sure of any other standouts other than Bellinger, honestly. And so this is another.
Maybe Rhys Hopkins. Maybe
he'll get votes.
Did he have enough playing time?
I think he did. He had like what Sanchez had last season as far as when he came up and getting some votes.
Yeah, and I think Josh Bell of the Pirates will probably get some votes too. He had a he had a pretty decent season.
Forgot about Josh Bell because of course it's Pittsburgh. So.
Right. They're famous for Primanti Brothers, and that's about it. All right. Manager of the Year should be a very fascinating race, especially because it's quite possible that the winner of this award has already been fired. So let's start with the American League, and for this we can actually back and talk about history a little bit if we would like. But Chris, I'll start with you. Who do you think will win the AL Manager of the Year?
I like Paul Molitor in this race because he took the Twins. I mean, he took them to the wild card game, and I didn't really expect much from the Twins. I'm not sure how many people did. They got a really young, talented pool of players on the Twins that are probably maybe another year or two from being a very good monster team. But right now, I think Paul Molitor, he did a lot with what he had this season and brought him to the postseason. And I got to say, that's got to be in his favor.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I certainly think he's more deserving this year than last year when they won 83 games. That's a bit low for a manager of the year. That's like just not quite good enough. But this year, I think Molitor's got a great case for it in the American League, and I think I want to pick him, but I'm going to go with A.J. Hinch from Houston. He's been getting a lot of ink as sort of the prototype for what managers should be going forward. So I'll go with A.J. Hinch. And Jason, how about you?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with Chris and with Paul Molitor. The guy definitely deserves it, especially with the way he turned the Twins around. They much like the Yankees, weren't supposed to be ready until next season. But I think most of the writers are going to take the high road and go for A.J. Hinch.
Okay, National League. Got a lot of deserving candidates here. Certainly the surprise season from Colorado is going to earn Bud Black a lot of ink. The surprise season from Milwaukee is going to get Craig Counsell a lot of votes. And, of course, out in Arizona, Torey Lovullo did a wonderful job with them. It's a really tough race. Dave Roberts could get another one. Joe Madden could get another one. Even the deposed Dusty Baker could get another one. I want to go with Craig Counsell, and so that's who I'm going to pick. I think it's probably not going to be him, but that's who I'll pick. I'll go with the underdog. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm torn between Torey Lovullo and Bud Black. I think the Dodgers were supposed to be good this season, and Dave Roberts got Manager of the Year last season, so his time for that has kind of passed. I don't think that the Dodgers will take the high road with him like they do with Hinch. I'm torn between Lovullo and Bud Black. I'm gonna flip a coin and say Torey Lovullo.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's justifiable. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few writers that go running around looking for a three-sided coin with Counsell, Lovullo, and Black. Chris, what do you think?
Right, I
National
agree.
League.
Yeah, I think I give Lovullo the edge just as well. I like Bud Black and what he did with the Rockies, getting them in there. Especially considering that they play half their games at Coors Field, and you never know what's going to happen in that ballpark. But Lovullo, he really after the disappointing 2016 season for Arizona, Lovullo came in and he really just had this team buckled down and had himself an awesome lineup to work with, and they really got a rejuvenating season out of Zach Greinke, and I think Lovullo did a great job there, and of course he's for several years he was the bench coach for John Farrell in Boston. So I remember in 2015 when Farrell went down with the cancer and Lovullo took the team over. He did a great job with them down the stretch, and he had them playing respectably in a losing season. That was another season where the Sox finished last. But he had them winning down the stretch, and so I really think that was a precursor to what he brought to the table, and I really think Lovullo is the guy in the National League who should get this award.
Okay, so we've got two for Lovullo, and I'm the outlier with Counsell, but I think they've all got equally great chances, just depending on the narrative the writers want to pick out. Next, the Cy Young Awards. I think here we can look at preseason picks. So, Chris, you selected for the National League Cy Young Clayton Kershaw. I picked Madison Bumgarner because I forgot that dirt bikes exist. So I'll get mine out of the way. I would go with last year's winner, Max Scherzer. I think he had an excellent season. Every time he goes out on the field, you think he might throw a no-hitter. He threw more innings than Kershaw. He had more strikeouts. But flip a coin, ask me again tomorrow. I could easily go with the Dodgers lefty. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, this is kind of a tough one because I think both Scherzer and Kershaw make a great case. It also shows the lack of really pitching ace depth in the National League, and when the race can really only come down to like maybe one of two guys. I think I got to give the edge to Scherzer, just basically because of the numbers you ran down. Unfortunately, he lost a lot of games because of that horrible Nats bullpen in the first half of the season. That cost him probably 2 or 3 wins. But I still got to give these to Scherzer here because, of course, that's not his fault. The guy's a bulldog. He takes the ball and he wants to keep it. It's very hard to get the ball out of his hands, and I really like that about him. And I think he has the edge over Kershaw in the race.
Okay, and Jason, are you going to make it 3 for 3 for Max, or are you going to go a different direction?
Yeah, I'm going to make 3 for 3 with Max, and it reminds me a little bit of when King Felix won. I think it was 2011, 2012, with like a 13-14 record with the Mariners, where either his bullpen blew it or his or he was just taken out of a game, and the hitting couldn't contribute to him getting a win. Same thing with Scherzer. It's either the bats fell flat or just the crappy Nats bullpen, and it's not, and it wasn't fair to Max. So I think that he definitely wins it here. Also, I think Kenley Jansen is going to get a couple of votes. He's going to come in third, comfortably behind Kershaw and Max. But he's definitely going to be a guy that's going to get a couple of first place votes.
Yeah, I agree. I think he had a great year. He may be the difference maker in this award. He may take votes away from Kershaw. It'll be fascinating. Just for reference, Felix Hernandez, 2010 Seattle, 13-12 with a 2.27 ERA, Cy Young Award winner. Definitely Max. Yep. Max can't
that sounds right.
You can't hold him accountable for what happens after he leaves a game. So, if the bullpen cost him a little bit, you wouldn't know it by looking at anything other than his win-loss record, and we know now that win-loss records for individual pitchers are a bit nonsensical. Okay, MVP is our last major award. I'm sorry, we're skipping AL Cy Young. My goodness. AL Cy Young, Chris, you picked Corey Kluber. Excellent selection there. I picked my boy, Justin Verlander, and he did have a fairly solid year. A nice rebound last year in 16 and a good year this year, particularly after his trade, but seems pretty unlikely that he'll finish any higher than possibly third in the voting, and that's if he gets a lot of love. So I would go with Kluber. I think that was a very astute prediction, especially from a man whose team just had acquired Chris Sale. Again, my pick is Kluber. Chris, your pick at this point.
Well, if the season ended on August 1st, I would have said Chris Sale. But, of course, they play, another whole month or so extra. So Sale, like I said earlier, he faded down the stretch, and I think that's really what's going to cost him. I'm sticking with Kluber. I think Kluber is the cream of the crop in the American League, and there's no reason to believe why he should not win this award once again.
Okay, and Jason, same question. We're going to go 3 for 3 here, or are you going to go a different direction?
Yeah, Kluber's the juggernaut in American League pitching. The guy's unstoppable. When the Red Sox acquired Chris Sale from the White Sox, on the offseason. As a Yankee fan, I was shitting my pants just because of the way that Sales handled the Yankees in the past. I knew that we were going to end up facing him 5 times this season. Fortunately, we actually pitched pretty well against him and played pretty well, especially with CC Sabathia going against him. But yeah, down the stretch when it counted, Sale kind of fell apart a little bit, and Kluber was just a maniac the entire season.
Okay, so we're down now to the MVPs. This will be the last award handed out by Major League Baseball. American League MVP, I had predicted a breakout for Baltimore's star third baseman Manny Machado, and he did struggle early, but he pulled it together, had a very solid year by the end of things. But Baltimore fell on their face and wasn't really a contender. So it doesn't look like my preseason pick there is going to bear any fruit. Chris, your preseason pick was Mookie Betts, and as we talked earlier, he had a bit of a down year as well. So looks like we went 0 for 2 in picking AL MVPs back in March, but here and now we can redeem ourselves. I'm going with world champion Jose Altuve, led the American League in WAR with 8.3 to Baseball Reference. He won a batting title. A really great season all around at a key defensive position for Altuve. And Chris, again, your pick for AL MVP.
Well, yeah, it's not going to be Mookie Betts, unfortunately. However, with that said, I really believe that Jose Altuve is going to be the one to take it. With Judge winning Rookie of the Year, I think that will be the writers' tribute to him, giving him that award. So I really think the votes will go towards Altuve in terms of, vote getting, placing at the top of many ballots. And so Altuve, really deserving to. I mean, the guy, regardless of how Joe Buck, kissed his ass during the whole postseason, he's still a great player, and he really worked hard to get where he is, and I really think this is very deserving.
Joe Buck's eventual face turn is going to be amazing, you guys. All right, so Jason, are we going 3 for 3 on this one with Altuve, or are you going to go with your local hero and endure an entire winter of nothing but legal puns? Which direction are you going, sir?
No, I'm not gonna have my heel turn here and go against the grain and choose Aaron Judge. It's gonna be Jose Altuve. During the regular season, Aaron Judge, was America's sweetheart in baseball, but Jose Altuve proved, on a national scale in the postseason, that he's America's sweetheart in baseball. It's just 5'6" of pure dynamite. The guy does everything. He's clutch at that. He can, the guy's 110 pounds soaking wet. He should be in the WWE's 205 live division, the cruiserweight division. The guy can smack a ball 415 feet. One of the best defensive players in the league. Joe Buck made me not like him during the playoffs. But with all due respect to Jose Altuve, the guy's a complete package, and he deserves this award.
Okay. All right, so we go to the senior circuit for our last award, National League MVP. My preseason pick was Dodger shortstop Corey Seager, who did have an excellent team, but his production just wasn't quite on the level that many people predicted. Of course, some injuries played a part there. So my pick is going to be, as much as I want to say Joey Votto, because he's an awesome individual, he cares about his fans, and he's just so much fun, and he's so damn good. I can't pick him because the Reds were so terrible, and like it or not, sometimes we still attach team success to individual awards. And with the Reds just being such a bottom feeder, I've got to go with a player on a winning team. If the Reds were 500, then I'd go Joey Votto. Instead, I'll go Nolan Arenado of the Rockies. Phenomenal hitter, great defense, just a five-tool talent on a very, very surprising and very, very good Rockies team. Chris, your preseason pick was a fellow third baseman, Chris Bryant of the Cubs. He had almost an identical 2017 to his MVP season last year. Probably didn't win because the Cubs didn't perform quite as well. They weren't the story. So who do you got for National League MVP, Chris?
Well, that's interesting, Joel, that you went with Nolan Arenado, because I'm going to pick a Rocky, but it's not Nolan Arenado. It's Charlie Blackmon. And I think this was really a breakout season for him in terms of getting his name out there. I think he was a great complement to that lineup. Hitting atop the lineup, he had the combination of speed, power, and defense. Although, of course, we have to attribute probably at least 60% of that to Coors Field. But I really think Charlie Blackmon is going to win the award. But it's also interesting because with Nolan Arenado in the running, we may have Blackmon and Arenado canceling each other out for maybe a third person to maybe steal it.
Yeah, it's quite possible. We talked about that with Los Angeles and Kershaw and Jensen. So, Jason, we've got two Rockies on the ballot here on our board. Who do you have for the National League's most valuable player?
Well, the two Rockies players are Nolan is one of the most colorful guys in the league. I love watching him play. I made a point to watch Rockies games just to watch him. Charlie Blackmon, possibly the best leadoff hitter in the majors. You can argue George Springer and a few others. But he possibly had the most quietest successful season for a couple of years in a row in the majors, and that's Paul Goldschmidt of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, he is going to get a lot of votes, I think, especially with the successful season that Arizona had, for sure. It's amazing how many possibilities there are in the National League this year. And certainly, again, if there's a narrative of surprise, all three of our candidates fit that bill.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be fascinating to see. Just to wrap up, gentlemen, I do have our preseason predictions for playoff teams a little bit for Chris and myself. The National League, Chris, you and I both thought the Cubs would end up as the National League champions. So we did okay there. They made it almost all the way back, losing the NLCS to the Dodgers. No shame in picking them. The American League champions, you picked your beloved Red Sox because, let's face it, they were pretty good. They had a good all-around team and seemed as reasonable a pick as any. I actually should have gone to Vegas with this one. I picked Houston to win the American League. World champions, Chris, you picked the Red Sox, and I picked the Astros. So it's always interesting for me to look back at preseason and see accountable we need to hold ourselves for great picks or terrible ideas. But that's the fun part about baseball. That's what makes it so amazing. Gentlemen, thank you so much for this adventure and this fun evening of baseball talk. Nation, we will be back again shortly with our second episode of Breaking Balls. We'll get deeper into the Hot Stove League. We will talk about player movement, who should go where, who has gone where, and we've got a lot of other ideas in store for making this just a really fun way to talk about the game that we all love so much. So for Jason Greenhouse, for Chris Jordan, this is Joel Barnhart signing off. Thank you all very much.